Hi everyone, welcome back to Keystone IAS Academy for your daily editorial analysis. In today's session, we will break down two important articles from The Hindu in the simplest way possible. One on flexible inflation targeting and the second on the Great Nicobar project. We will end with a quick announcement about our free prelims test series. So let's begin. First article is related to flexible inflation targeting. The article written by economist C. Rangarajan, and it discusses India's inflation targeting framework, which is up for review in March 2026. So a quick recap on CPI inflation and core inflation, which we discussed yesterday. So here you can see the previous year question asked from WPI, CPI, inflation, all these things. So yes, yesterday we discussed this in detail. So just a quick recap about first coming to consumer price index, CPI. What is CPI? It's like a basket of goods, food, rent, clothing, transport, fuel, etc. All these things. We track how prices of this basket change over time. Okay, how prices of these basket contains of goods, all these things, food, fuel, transport, etc. How will you give weightage for this? ஒரு ஆவரேஜ் இந்தியன் ஹவுஸ் ஹோல்ட் வந்து எவ்வளோ ஈச் ஐட்டம்க்கு ஸ்பெண்ட் பண்ணுறாங்கிறத பொறுத்து இந்த பேஸ்கெட்டில் இந்த குட்ஸோட வெயிட் வந்து மாறும் அப்படிங்கிறத நம்ம நேற்று பார்த்தோம். தென் கமிங் டு இன்ஃப்ளேஷன், வாட் இஸ் திஸ்? த பெர்சன்டேஜ் இன்க்ரீஸ் இன் ப்ரைசஸ் கம்பேர்டு டு த பேஸ் இயர், தட் இஸ் வாட் பேஸ் எஃபெக்ட் ஆல்சோ நம்ம பார்த்தோம். If something was 100 last year and 110 this year, then how much inflation? It is 10% inflation. That is very simple. Then what is core inflation? If in the basket of food items irukku illaya, if we remove food and fuel from that basket, so adha mattum nama remove pannittu matha ellathum paathona, that is core inflation. So core inflation, this removes food and fuel because they fluctuate too much. So it helps understand the long term trend. So here's the key point here. In India, food inflation often spreads and becomes general inflation. So ignoring food prices, core inflation, may give a misleading picture. This is what the article is arguing. So why this article strongly argues for targeting headline inflation and not core? Why core வேண்டாம் சொல்லு இந்த ஆர்டிகல் வந்து the economist என்ன சொல்றாங்க அப்படின்னா, core inflation நம்ம டார்கெட் பண்ணக்கூடாது because food inflation often spreads and becomes the general inflation. அதுதான் ரொம்ப ஜென்ரலான இன்ஃப்ளேஷன், அதிகமாக நடக்கக்கூடிய இன்ஃப்ளேஷன். ஸோ நம்ம வந்து ஹெட்லைன் இன்ஃப்ளேஷனை டார்கெட் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னு இந்த ஆர்டிகல் வந்து சஜஸ்ட் பண்ணுது. ஸோ why does inflation control matter? ஸோ எதுக்காக நம்ம சிபிஐ இன்ஃப்ளேஷன் இதெல்லாம் நம்ம பார்க்கணும்? ஸோ high inflation is basically a regressive tax. It affects the poor the most because their income doesn't increase quickly. Their savings lose value. Their basic consumption becomes more expensive. So keeping inflation stable is essential for economic stability. So coming to the next question, what is the right inflation level for India then? So using long-term data, the article explains around 4% inflation is ideal. This we all know. So below 4%, it is good for growth. Above 6%, growth begins to fall sharply. So the current target of 4% plus or minus 2 is essentially correct. So should that inflation band needs to change in the review? What the author says, the current band, which is 4 plus or minus 2, is flexible enough, but the RBI should not stay near the upper limit for the longer periods, like 6%, 4 to 6% அப்படின்னா அந்த ஹையர் லிமிட்ல வந்து அதாவது 6% கிட்ட போய் நம்ம இருக்கக்கூடாது. ஆர்பிஐ வந்து should maintain at least middle or below limit. So that would defeat the purpose of inflation targeting. அப்பர் லிமிட்லயே இருந்துட்டு இருந்தோம்னா இன்ஃப்ளேஷன் டார்கெட்டிங் பண்றதுக்கே ஒரு பர்பஸ் இல்லாம போயிடும் அப்படின்னு இந்த ஆர்டிகல் வந்து ஆர்கியூ பண்ணுது. So key warning, what is that? FIT works only if fiscal policy is disciplined. This is also the main point which is mentioned in the article. Yes, if the government keeps borrowing heavily and runs large deficits, then inflation will rise no matter what RBI does. அதுதான் the fiscal policy. So what article says? FIT is flexible inflation targeting. FIT வந்து work பண்ணனும்னா fiscal policy should also be disciplined. Then what is this fiscal policy? Government's borrowing. So government oda transactions தான் என்னது fiscal policy. Government maintain பண்றது தான் fiscal policy. RBI maintain பண்றது monetary policy. So if the government keeps borrowing heavily, அப்படி பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தா runs large deficitல போய்டும். அப்ப inflation will rise no matter what RBI does. So FRBM, fiscal responsibility management, and FIT, monetary discipline, must work together is what the main point is discussed in the article. So here you can see already we saw the slides yesterday, which is CPI, which is main points about CPI inflation which are very relevant for prelims. Coming to the practice question, India's flexible inflation targeting framework is under review. Evaluate whether the current target of 4 plus or minus 2 remains appropriate for the next 5 years. In your answer, examine the head versus core inflation debate, acceptable inflation levels, and the role of fiscal policy. All these things which we have discussed in the article. So you can write them as points in the mains answer. Please do practice answer and post them in our Telegram group, which is very important. And we will review as soon as possible. Coming to the next article. This article exposes a major environmental conflict in the government's own decisions. So what is this project? At 92,000 crore mega infrastructure project, 92,000 mega infrastructure project that includes a massive transshipment port, international airport, power plant, tourist township, all planned at Galathea Bay, Great Nicobar Island. I will show you the picture now. Yeah, here it is. Here the Galathea Bay, which is present in the Great Nicobar Island. இங்க என்ன plan பண்ணிருக்கோம்னா 92,000 crore infrastructure project which includes a massive transshipment port, international airport, power plant, and tourist township. So what makes this area ecologically sensitive? Galathea Bay is one of India's richest biodiversity zones with 20,000 plus live coral colonies, 50 plus nesting grounds of Nicobar megapod, that is Schedule 1 species, which is very important to note now. One of India's biggest leatherback turtle nesting beaches. So this area deserves maximum protection. So why this project and ministry is in trouble now? Because of the multiple contradictions. Why? What are these contradictions? First one is wildlife sanctuary removed. In 2021, the National Board for Wildlife denotified Galathea Bay Wildlife Sanctuary, even though it was created specifically to protect turtles and corals. Sanctuary removed, so project allowed. Now ministry says we will mitigate the impact. Okay, CRZ issue then. Next comes the CRZ issue. Legally, construction is not allowed in this area. What the CRZ areas include corals, mangroves, turtle nesting beaches, wildlife habitats. All these areas are CRZ, means coastal regulation zone. So in this area, construction is not allowed usually. So NGT found 20,668 corals at the port site. It is clearly CRZ 1A. But then a committee submitted a confidential report saying no CRZ exists in this site. But the report is not public. It's a big transparency issue. Coming to the next contradiction, which is conflicting statements. In the latest hearing, the Environment Ministry itself admitted, yes, there are corals, yes, there are megapod nest, yes, turtles nest here. But the earlier report submitted to NGT claimed the opposite. So both cannot be true, right? That raises a basic question, is what the article is arguing. So why this matter now? This issue is bigger than just Great Nicobar. It raises doubts about scientific integrity, transparency in environmental clearances, whether wildlife protections are being bypassed, how India balances development versus conservation. So all these are a big doubt now. This is what the article, the core context is. The article concludes that the ministry has tied itself in knots by contradicting its own findings. Here you can see the points whichever I have mentioned. Coming to the practice question, the Great Nicobar Island project highlights deep contradictions in India's environmental governance framework in the context of CRZ norms, wildlife protection, and the role of regulatory institutions. Critically analyze the ecological and procedural concerns raised by the project. Write your answers and post them in our Telegram group for review. Yes, as I already said, before we wrap up, here's an important update for serious UPSC aspirants, and Keystone IAS Academy proudly presents Keystone SPS, Sprint Prelims Simulator. Sprint Prelims Simulator, which is nothing but the Prelims Free Test Series 2026. So you will get 45 tests including GS and CSAT, full length plus sectional with the detailed explanations. Also you will get one-to-one mentorship and OMR practice, performance rankings and rewards for top rankers. So what is the special offer here? Only the registration fee is just 50 rupees only. Rest of the test will all free. So you can apply for the mode of both online and offline available. Enrollments are open now. You can contact 7305777541 or you can register in the Google form which is included in the video description. So you can go there, you can just click and register your name, you will get the subscription. So if you are preparing for UPSC 2026, this is the perfect start. So thank you for listening. Stay consistent, revise daily, keep following our sessions for clear, exam relevant editorial analysis. See you in the next session. Thank you.